Afternoon tea in a peaceful Victorian garden. A calming bedtime story in 5 chapters. Chapter 1. Morning Awakening in the Victorian Garden. You wake slowly, naturally, as the first gentle rays of morning sunlight filter through the delicate lace curtains of your bedroom window. The year is 1887, and you are staying in a beautiful country manor house in the rolling hills of the English countryside. The soft sounds of early morning drift through your window. A gentle breeze rustles through the ancient oak trees that have stood sentinel over this garden for more than 2 centuries. You hear the distant, melodic call of a wood pigeon, its 3-note song echoing softly across the dewy meadows. You rise slowly from your comfortable 4-poster bed. The mahogany frame was crafted by skilled artisans from the renowned workshops of Gillows of Lancaster. Your feet touch the cool, polished floorboards. Each plank was cut from English oak trees that grew for hundreds of years in the nearby forests. Moving to the tall sash window, you gently pull back the heavy damask curtains. The fabric was woven in the mills of Macclesfield, where skilled workers created intricate patterns inspired by the botanical illustrations in Curtis's Botanical Magazine. The curtains frame your view perfectly. Below you stretches the most beautiful Victorian garden you have ever seen. Created in the 1860s by the renowned landscape designer Edward Kemp, a protege of Sir Joseph Paxton, the designer of the Crystal Palace. The garden follows the romantic English landscape tradition, with curved pathways that seem to meander naturally through carefully planned vistas. The morning mist rises gently from the perfectly manicured lawn. Each blade of grass has been carefully tended according to the methods described in William Robinson's The Wild Garden, published just 10 years ago. The grass varieties include fine fescue and bent grass, creating a carpet so smooth and green it seems almost unreal. To your left, you see the magnificent herbaceous border, designed according to the revolutionary color theories of Gertrude Jekyll. Though she is still a young woman making her mark on garden design, the border stretches for nearly 100 feet, planted with careful attention to height, texture, and seasonal progression. The early morning light illuminates tall delphiniums in shades of deepest blue. Their spikes reach nearly 8 feet high, swaying gently in the soft breeze. Beside them, white peonies display their magnificent ruffled blooms. Each flower head is as large as a dinner plate, filled with layer upon layer of silky petals that catch and hold the morning dew. Hardy geraniums carpet the front of the border, their small, delicate flowers in shades of pink and purple, creating a soft, textured edge. These are the true geraniums, not the bright pelargoniums that many people call geraniums. The botanical accuracy reflects the Victorian passion for scientific precision in gardening. A gravel path winds through the garden. The gravel was specially selected from the quarries of Derbyshire. Each small stone has been carefully graded and rolled to create the perfect surface for gentle walking. The Victorians understood that the sound of footsteps on gravel should be soft, almost musical. You notice the garden's careful structure, reflecting the Victorian love of both order and natural beauty. Box hedges, carefully trimmed into low geometric patterns, provide structure and formality. These hedges were planted from cuttings taken from the famous topiary gardens at Levens Hall in Cumbria, where the art of topiary has been practiced for more than 3 centuries. Beyond the formal areas, the garden transitions into more naturalistic plantings. This reflects the influence of William Robinson's wild garden movement, which encouraged the cultivation of hardy plants in natural-looking settings. Primroses naturalize under the spreading branches of ancient apple trees. Their pale yellow flowers seem to glow in the dappled morning light. The apple trees themselves tell a story of English agricultural history. These are heritage varieties with names that sound like poetry. Ashmead's Kernel, Ribston Pippin, Egremont Russet. Each variety was selected not just for flavor, but for the particular time of year it would ripen, ensuring fresh apples from late summer through the depths of winter. A small stone bridge crosses a gentle stream that meanders through the lower portion of the garden. The stream was designed to look completely natural, but every curve and eddy was carefully planned. The water flows over carefully placed stones, creating the softest, most soothing sound, like nature's own lullaby. Along the stream banks, moisture-loving plants create lush, green tapestries. Astil plumes rise in creamy white and soft pink. Their feathery texture contrasts beautifully with the broad, architectural leaves of hostas. These hostas were among the first to be cultivated in English gardens, brought from Japan by plant hunters like Robert Fortune. You open the tall window, and immediately the garden's fragrances drift into your room. The scent of roses dominates, but it's a complex perfume made up of many varieties. The climbing rose on the south wall of the house is Rosa Madame Alfred Carrière, introduced by a French nurseryman in 1879. Its pale pink flowers bloom repeatedly throughout the season, filling the air with the most delicate, sweet fragrance. Below your window, a border of lavender releases its essential oils as the morning sun warms the narrow, silver-green leaves. This is English lavender, Lavandula angustifolia, planted not just for beauty, but for practical purposes. Victorian households used lavender to scent linens, repel moths, and create potpourri for drawing rooms. The sound of gentle activity reaches your ears. You can hear the soft footsteps of the head gardener, Mr. Hartwell, as he makes his early morning rounds. He has tended this garden for more than 20 years, learning his craft as an apprentice at the Royal Horticultural Society's gardens at Chiswick. Mr. Hartwell carries a well-worn wooden trug, hand-woven from Sussex willow, according to methods passed down through generations of basket makers. In it, he collects the fresh herbs that will be used in the kitchen today: parsley, sage, thyme, and rosemary, all grown in the dedicated herb garden near the kitchen door. The herb garden follows medieval monastery traditions, with each herb planted in its own dedicated bed, separated by narrow paths of crushed shell. The shells came from the coast of Norfolk, where local fishermen have harvested mussels and cockles for centuries. The white shells reflect light, helping to ripen the Mediterranean herbs that struggle somewhat in the English climate. You watch as Mr. Hartwell stops to examine a climbing rose, checking for the first signs of black spot or aphids. Victorian gardeners were constantly vigilant against plant diseases, relying on traditional methods passed down through generations. Soap solutions, tobacco water, and ladybird beetles were their primary weapons against garden pests. A robin lands on the handle of Mr. Hartwell's trug, completely unafraid. Victorian robins were much tamer than their modern descendants. Accustomed to constant human presence in the garden, this robin has likely been following the gardener for years, knowing that turned soil often reveals fat earthworms and grubs. The robin's breast glows red-orange in the morning light. Its small, bright eyes watch everything with intelligent curiosity. Robins were beloved by Victorian gardeners who considered them good luck. Many gardens had small robin houses, specially designed shelters placed in quiet corners where these friendly birds could nest safely. From somewhere in the garden comes the gentle sound of water. Not just the stream, but something more rhythmic. You realize it's the old hand pump near the potting shed. Someone is drawing fresh water, probably for the greenhouse plants. The pump was installed in 1875, connected to a deep well that provides the sweetest, softest water, perfect for watering delicate seedlings. The greenhouse stands at the far end of the garden. Its elegant Victorian design features a curved roof and decorative ironwork painted in the traditional sage green. Inside, tender plants overwinter safely. Geraniums, fuchsias, and exotic palms that cannot survive the English frost. The greenhouse allows the garden to maintain color and interest even during the darkest months. You notice movement near the greenhouse and see a young woman in a crisp white apron. This is Mary, the undergardener, one of the few women employed in professional horticulture during this era. She tends the greenhouse plants, propagates cuttings, and maintains the cut flower garden that provides blooms for the house. Mary carries a wooden flat filled with small terracotta pots. Each pot contains a carefully germinated seedling. These are the annuals that will provide bright color throughout the summer. Sweet alyssum, nasturtiums, and marigolds, all grown from seeds saved from last year's best plants. The Victorian practice of seed saving was both economical and practical. Seeds were carefully collected at the end of each season, dried and stored in labeled envelopes in a cool, dry place. This ensured that favorite varieties would return year after year and allowed gardeners to share special plants with friends and neighbors. Near the greenhouse, you spot the cold frames, low, glass-covered structures that serve as halfway houses for young plants. Inside these protective boxes, seedlings gradually adjust to outdoor conditions. The process is called hardening off, and it requires careful attention to temperature, ventilation, and watering. A peacock butterfly lands on a nearby buddleia bush. Its wings shimmer with iridescent colors, deep purple, orange, and cream. The buddleia was introduced to English gardens from China, and Victorian gardeners quickly discovered that it attracts an amazing variety of butterflies. The long, cone-shaped flower clusters provide nectar from summer through autumn. Butterflies were particularly cherished in Victorian gardens, seen as symbols of transformation and renewal. Garden designers often included specific plants known to attract butterflies, creating what we might now call wildlife gardens, though the Victorians simply thought of them as gardens that brought joy through movement and color. You decide to dress and venture into this beautiful garden. The morning air will be cool and fresh, perfect for a gentle walk before the day grows warm. You select comfortable walking clothes, appropriate for a lady or gentleman of this era. The clothing is practical yet elegant, reflecting the Victorian balance between propriety and comfort. Your outfit includes sturdy leather boots, perfect for garden paths. These were made by a local cobbler who learned his trade as an apprentice to one of London's finest shoemakers. The leather was carefully selected and treated with traditional methods, ensuring years of comfortable wear. As you prepare to leave your room, you pause for one more look at the garden. The morning mist is beginning to lift, revealing more details of this carefully created paradise. Every plant, every path, every vista has been planned with meticulous attention to both beauty and botanical science. This garden represents the height of Victorian horticultural achievement, combining the latest scientific knowledge with traditional craftsmanship and a deep appreciation for natural beauty. It's a place where time moves slowly, where every detail invites contemplation, and where the stresses of daily life simply melt away. You move toward the door, eager to experience this magical place firsthand. The morning promises to be perfect for exploring, with gentle sunshine, soft breezes, and the company of countless plants and creatures that call this garden home. The floorboards creak softly under your feet, a comfortable, familiar sound in this old house. Each creak tells a story of the countless people who have walked these halls, all drawn by the beauty of the garden below and the peace it offers to anyone who enters its carefully tended boundaries. Your hand touches the cool brass doorknob, polished smooth by generations of use. In just a moment, you'll step outside into the fresh morning air and begin your gentle journey through one of the most beautiful gardens in all of England. The anticipation builds softly, like the growing light of dawn. You're about to enter a world where time moves at the pace of growing plants, where every breath brings the sweetest fragrances, and where every step reveals new wonders. But for now, you pause, savoring this moment of anticipation. The garden waits patiently, as gardens always do, ready to share its secrets, its beauty, and its deep, abiding peace with anyone who approaches with an open heart. Your eyelids grow heavy as you imagine stepping into that perfect morning. The soft sounds of the waking garden seem to call you gently, like a lullaby. The peaceful morning light filters through your consciousness, warm and golden, and slowly, gently, you drift into a deep, restful sleep where dreams of Victorian gardens bloom eternal. Chapter 2: Preparing Tea and Delicacies. You wake again, this time to find yourself standing at the French doors that open onto the garden terrace. The morning has progressed into late afternoon, and golden sunlight streams across the carefully manicured lawns. The transition feels natural, dreamlike, as if you've moved through the day in a gentle, floating manner. Through the glass, you can see that preparations are already underway for afternoon tea. This most English of traditions began in the 1840s when Anna, the 7th Duchess of Bedford, began taking light refreshments to bridge the long gap between lunch and the late Victorian dinner hour. The terrace has been transformed into an elegant outdoor tea setting. A round table, crafted from English oak and painted in soft cream, sits perfectly positioned to catch the afternoon light while remaining shaded by the spreading branches of an ancient lime tree. The table was made by local craftsmen who learned their woodworking skills from masters trained in the great furniture workshops of the Cotswolds. The tablecloth is pure white Irish linen, woven in the mills of Belfast, where skilled artisans have perfected the craft of linen making for generations. The fabric is so fine that it seems to shimmer in the dappled light. Its edges are decorated with delicate hand-embroidered roses, worked by the lady of the house during quiet winter evenings. You notice that the table setting follows the precise rules of Victorian etiquette. Each place setting includes multiple pieces of china, all from the same service, a beautiful pattern called Asiatic pheasants, made by the famous Spode Pottery Works in Staffordshire. The blue and white design was inspired by Chinese export porcelain, but adapted to English tastes and manufacturing techniques. The teacups are positioned exactly 1 inch from the edge of the table, with handles pointing to 4 o'clock. This positioning allows for graceful lifting without disturbing neighboring place settings. The saucers are perfectly aligned, and each cup sits in the center of its saucer with mathematical precision. Beside each teacup sits a small plate for cake and sandwiches, along with a delicate silver knife for spreading jam or cream. The silverware was made by the renowned Sheffield silversmiths Mappin and Webb, each piece bearing the maker's mark and the family crest of the house. The silver has been polished to a mirror finish by the household staff, using traditional methods passed down through generations. The centerpiece of the table is extraordinary. A 3-tiered silver cake stand, its elaborate Victorian design featuring scrollwork and botanical motifs. The stand was crafted by silversmiths in Birmingham, the center of England's silver industry, where skilled artisans learned their trade through 7-year apprenticeships. On the bottom tier, tiny triangular sandwiches are arranged with geometric precision. The cucumber sandwiches feature paper-thin slices of cucumber, grown in the estate's own greenhouse, placed between slices of white bread, so fresh it was baked this morning in the kitchen range. The bread was made from flour ground at the local mill, where the great water wheel has been turning for more than 3 centuries. Each cucumber sandwich has been cut with mathematical precision, removing all crusts, creating perfect triangles that demonstrate the Victorian obsession with order and refinement. The cucumbers were selected for their firm texture and mild flavor. Varieties like Telegraph and Improved Long Green that Victorian gardeners prized for their reliability and taste. Beside the cucumber sandwiches, delicate egg salad sandwiches provide a slightly more substantial option. The eggs came from the estate's own hens, a carefully selected flock of light Sussex and Rhode Island Reds that roam freely in a spacious run behind the kitchen garden. Their deep yellow yolks create the richest, most flavorful egg salad. The egg salad is mixed with the finest mayonnaise, made fresh this morning by the cook using eggs, oil, cooking, and ketchup, and vinegar according to a recipe brought back from France by the family's eldest son. The mayonnaise is lightened with finely chopped chives from the herb garden, adding both color and a gentle onion flavor that complements the rich eggs perfectly. On the middle tier of the cake stand, an array of small cakes and pastries creates a feast for the eyes. Madeleines, those delicate shell-shaped sponge cakes made famous by French bakers, sit alongside traditional English fairy cakes topped with the palest pink icing. Each cake is a perfect miniature work of art. The Madeleines were baked in special shell-shaped molds, imported from a tinsmith in Lyon. The batter contains the finest ingredients, including butter from the estate's own dairy, eggs from the free-range hens, and flour milled from wheat grown in the nearby fields. Each cake has the characteristic bump on its back, indicating perfect technique in mixing and baking. Tiny eclairs, no bigger than a finger, are filled with fresh cream, whipped to perfect peaks, and sweetened with just a touch of vanilla. The vanilla pods came from the spice merchants in London's Mincing Lane, where exotic ingredients from around the British Empire arrived by ship, bringing the flavors of distant lands to English tables. The eclair shells are made from choux pastry, that miraculous dough that puffs into hollow shells when baked. The technique requires perfect timing and temperature, skills that the estate's cook learned during her training in the kitchens of great London houses, where French chefs introduced English cooks to continental pastry techniques. On the top tier, the pièce de résistance, a selection of small fruit tarts that look almost too beautiful to eat. Each tart shell is made from the finest shortbread pastry, rolled thin and pressed into tiny fluted molds. The shells were baked until just golden, then filled with pastry cream made from milk, eggs, and sugar, cooked slowly until thick and smooth. Fresh fruits crown each tart. Strawberries from the kitchen garden, their ruby red color made more intense by the afternoon light. These are Royal Sovereign strawberries, a variety introduced just 15 years ago that quickly became the standard by which all other strawberries are judged. Each berry was selected for perfect ripeness and shape. Alongside the strawberry tarts, tiny raspberry tarts showcase the deep red fruit grown on canes in the soft fruit garden. The raspberries are red Antwerp variety, brought to England from the continent in the previous century. Their sweet tart flavor provides the perfect counterpoint to the rich pastry cream. A few tarts feature fresh blackcurrants, their almost black color and intense flavor, representing the height of summer abundance. These currants came from bushes planted near the kitchen garden, where they benefit from the rich, well-composted soil and protection from strong winds. Victorian gardeners prized blackcurrants not just for their flavor, but for their keeping qualities and high vitamin content. The tea service itself is magnificent. A large silver teapot sits on a matching tray, surrounded by all the accessories required for proper tea service. The teapot was made in the workshops of the famous silversmith, Paul Storr, whose pieces are already sought after by collectors. Its capacity is perfectly calculated to serve 6 people with enough tea for multiple cups each. Beside the teapot sits a matching sugar bowl filled with white sugar cubes, cut into perfect squares and stored in an airtight container to prevent moisture. The sugar came from the West Indies, transported across the Atlantic in great sailing ships, then refined in the processing plants of Liverpool and London. A small silver pitcher contains fresh cream, skinned this morning from milk produced by the estate's Jersey cows. These gentle fawn-colored cattle are prized for the richness of their milk, which contains more cream than any other breed. The cream has been kept cool in the dairy's marble-lined cooling room, ensuring perfect freshness and flavor. The milk jug, slightly larger than the cream pitcher, contains milk from the same Jersey cows. This milk is for those who prefer a lighter addition to their tea, or who wish to follow the increasingly popular custom of adding milk rather than cream. The debate between milk and cream in tea is one of the great domestic discussions of the era. A plate of thinly sliced lemons provides the final option for tea enhancement. The lemons came from the estate's orangery, a beautiful glass house where citrus trees spend the winter months protected from frost. Growing citrus in England requires considerable skill and attention, but the reward is fruit of exceptional quality, with thin skins and intense flavor. Each lemon slice has been cut to precise thickness, arranged in overlapping circles on a delicate china plate. The arrangement demonstrates the Victorian attention to visual presentation, where even the simplest elements must be displayed with artistic consideration. You notice that everything is positioned with mathematical precision. The Victorian era was obsessed with order, symmetry, and proper proportion. This attention to detail extended to every aspect of life, from architecture to table setting, creating environments of extraordinary beauty and harmony. The chairs around the table are equally beautiful, made from carved mahogany with cane seats. They represent the finest English furniture making of the era. Each chair back features delicate carving depicting roses and other garden flowers. The work was done by craftsmen who learned their skills through long apprenticeships, creating pieces that will last for generations. Cushions on the chairs are covered in chintz, that quintessentially English fabric featuring botanical prints on cotton. This particular pattern shows climbing roses and morning glories in soft pinks and greens. The fabric was printed in Lancashire, where textile workers had perfected the art of creating complex, multicolored patterns. A gentle breeze stirs the tablecloth slightly, carrying with it the mingled fragrances of the garden. Rose petals from the nearby climber drift down occasionally, adding to the romantic atmosphere. The timing seems perfect for afternoon tea, that magical hour when the day's heat begins to soften and shadows grow longer across the lawn. In the distance, you can hear the soft sounds of final preparations, the gentle clink of china as the last pieces are arranged, the whisper of footsteps on gravel paths, the distant sound of water being heated in the great kitchen range. Everything is being orchestrated with the precision of a musical performance. The kitchen, located in the basement of the main house, is a marvel of Victorian efficiency and technology. The great cast-iron range, manufactured by the famous Smith and Wellsted Company of Bonnybridge, Scotland, provides precise temperature control for everything from delicate pastries to roasted meats. Coal from the Durham coalfields feeds the range, providing steady, controllable heat. Mrs. Whitmore, The head cook has overseen every detail of the tea preparation. She learned her craft in the kitchens of great London houses, where she worked her way up from scullery maid to cook through years of dedication and study. Her knowledge encompasses not just cooking techniques, but the complex etiquette and timing required for formal entertaining. The kitchen maids have been working since early morning, preparing the various elements that will make this afternoon tea memorable. Bread was baked before dawn, when the kitchen was cool and the yeast could work slowly to develop complex flavors. Pastry cream was prepared and chilled, ensuring perfect texture and temperature. Every detail has been considered, from the temperature of the serving plates, warmed gently in the range's warming oven, to the precise timing that will bring everything together at the perfect moment. The coordination required is extraordinary, involving multiple people working in perfect harmony. You hear footsteps approaching and turn to see the butler, Mr. Pemberton, approaching with measured dignity. He carries a silver tray bearing the final elements of the tea service. His posture is perfectly erect, his movements smooth and controlled. He has overseen hundreds of such occasions, each one executed with the same attention to detail and dedication to perfection. Mr. Pemberton has been with the family for more than 20 years, starting as a footman and working his way up through the household hierarchy. His knowledge of proper service is encyclopedic, encompassing everything from the correct way to pour tea to the proper sequence for serving different courses. Behind him walks Sarah, one of the housemaids, carrying additional plates and napkins. Her uniform is spotless, her movements careful and precise. She has been trained in all aspects of household service, from cleaning and maintenance to assisting with formal entertaining. The training process took months, but has created a skilled professional who takes pride in her work. The scene before you represents the height of Victorian domestic achievement. Every element, from the finest china to the humblest cucumber sandwich, has been prepared with meticulous attention to quality and presentation. This is hospitality elevated to an art form, where every guest feels welcomed and honored. The afternoon light continues to slant through the lime tree leaves, creating patterns of light and shadow that shift gently across the white tablecloth. The effect is magical, transforming an already beautiful scene into something almost ethereal. Time seems to slow down, as if the afternoon could last forever. A wood pigeon calls from somewhere in the ancient oak grove, its three-note song adding to the peaceful atmosphere. Bees hum contentedly among the lavender borders, their sound blending with the gentle rustle of leaves in the afternoon breeze. The garden seems to pulse with quiet life, creating the perfect backdrop for civilized conversation and gentle relaxation. Everything is nearly ready. The careful preparations of hours are about to culminate in an afternoon of refined pleasure, where conversation flows as smoothly as tea from a silver pot, and where the stresses of daily life are forgotten in the gentle ritual of taking tea in a beautiful garden. The anticipation builds softly, like the gradual warming of afternoon air. Soon, very soon, you'll take your place at this perfectly appointed table, surrounded by beauty, comfort, and the timeless pleasure of a proper English afternoon tea. But for now, you pause in this moment of perfect preparation, when everything is ready, but not yet begun. The afternoon stretches ahead like a peaceful dream, filled with gentle conversation, delicious flavors, and the deep satisfaction that comes from simple, perfect pleasures. Your eyelids grow heavy as you contemplate the beautiful scene. The gentle sounds of the garden seem to call you toward rest. The warm afternoon light filters through your consciousness like honey, and slowly, peacefully, you drift into a deep, restful sleep where dreams of perfect afternoons bloom like roses in an English garden. Chapter 3. Strolling along flower-lined paths. You find yourself walking slowly along the main garden path. Your feet move at the gentle pace of contemplation, each step bringing new discoveries, new fragrances, new moments of quiet beauty. The gravel beneath your feet creates the softest sound, like gentle rain on leaves. Each stone has been carefully selected for both appearance and the musical quality of the sound it makes when walked upon. The path curves gracefully through the garden, following the natural contours of the land while revealing carefully planned vistas at every turn. This design philosophy, known as the gardenesque style, was perfected by Victorian landscape designers who understood that a garden should unfold like a story, with each chapter more beautiful than the last. To your right, the magnificent herbaceous border stretches ahead like a river of color. The afternoon light illuminates each plant perfectly, showing the careful attention that has been paid to height, texture, color, and seasonal progression. This border represents years of planning and cultivation, where each plant has been chosen not just for its individual beauty, but for how it contributes to the overall composition. Tall delphiniums rise like blue cathedral spires, their flower spikes reaching nearly 8 feet into the air. These are the famous English delphiniums, bred for generations to achieve the perfect combination of height, flower density, and that particular shade of blue that seems to capture the essence of an English summer sky. Each spike contains hundreds of individual flowers, arranged in perfect symmetry around the central stem. The delphiniums were staked early in the season with bamboo canes, imported from the Far East, where Victorian plant hunters discovered so many remarkable species. The stakes are nearly invisible now, hidden by the full growth of the plants, but providing essential support against summer storms. This invisible infrastructure represents the careful planning that makes such dramatic displays possible. Interplanted between the delphiniums, white peonies display their magnificent full blooms. Each flower is a masterpiece of natural architecture, layer upon layer of silky petals, creating spheres of pure white that seem to glow in the afternoon light. These are Festiva maxima peonies, introduced by French hybridists who spent decades perfecting the form and fragrance of these spectacular flowers. The peonies fill the air with their distinctive fragrance, sweet and spicy at the same time. It's a scent that has been beloved for centuries, mentioned in Chinese poetry and European literature as the epitome of floral perfume. Each bloom lasted only a week, but the memory of their beauty and fragrance would linger for months. At the front of the border, hardy geraniums create a soft, textured carpet. Their small flowers in shades of pink and purple provide delicate counterpoint to the dramatic displays behind them. These are the true geraniums, Geranium sanguineum and Geranium macrorrhizum, not the bright red pelargoniums that many people mistakenly call geraniums. The geraniums were chosen for their ability to knit together into solid mats of color and texture, creating a living mulch that suppresses weeds while providing months of quiet beauty. Victorian gardeners appreciated plants that were both beautiful and practical, understanding that a successful garden must balance aesthetic goals with horticultural realities. You pause to examine a particularly beautiful clump of astilbe. Its creamy white plumes rising from deeply divided foliage. The plant creates its own microclimate, the dense foliage providing cool, moist conditions that allow it to thrive even during hot summer weather. The flowers seem to float above the leaves like gentle clouds. Astilbe was relatively new to English gardens, introduced by plant hunters who brought it back from expeditions to China and Japan. These Victorian plant explorers, men like Robert Fortune and Ernest Wilson, risked their lives to bring back new species that would transform English gardening. Each new introduction represented years of careful observation and gradual adaptation to English growing conditions. The path curves gently to the left, and suddenly, you're walking beside a magnificent rose garden. The roses are arranged in formal beds, each variety carefully labeled with small brass plaques that gleam in the afternoon sun. This systematic approach to plant labeling reflects the Victorian passion for botanical accuracy and scientific classification. The centerpiece of the rose garden is a magnificent specimen of Rosa Générale Jacqueminot, introduced by the French rose breeder Roussel in 1853. This hybrid perpetual rose produces deep red flowers with the most intense fragrance. The blooms are fully double, with layer upon layer of velvety petals that seem to capture and hold the afternoon light. Climbing roses cover the brick walls that define the rose garden, providing vertical interest and extending the blooming season. Rosa Madame Alfred Carrière, with its pale pink flowers and reliable repeat blooming, scrambles up the south-facing wall, while the more vigorous Rosa, Félicité Perpétue, covers a pergola with its clusters of small white flowers. The pergola itself is a beautiful example of Victorian garden architecture, constructed from English oak using traditional joinery techniques. The wood has weathered to a soft silver gray, and the structure seems to blend naturally into the garden landscape. Clematis vines intertwine with the climbing roses, adding purple and white flowers to the display. You notice that the rose beds are mulched with well-rotted horse manure, mixed with straw from the estate's own stables. This traditional mulch provides nutrients, retains moisture, and suppresses weeds, while gradually improving the soil structure. The Victorian understanding of soil health was remarkably sophisticated, based on generations of careful observation and experimentation. Between the rose beds, narrow paths are paved with York stone, quarried from the famous stone fields of Yorkshire. Each piece of stone was carefully selected and fitted, creating a surface that is both beautiful and practical. The pale gray stone provides perfect contrast to the rich colors of the roses, while remaining cool underfoot, even on the hottest summer days. A garden seat, carved from Portland stone, sits at the center of the rose garden, positioned to catch the morning sun while remaining shaded during the heat of the afternoon. The seat back features carved roses and other garden motifs, created by a master stone carver whose family has worked in Portland limestone for generations. You continue along the path, which now leads through a more naturalistic section of the garden. Here, the design philosophy changes from formal display to what William Robinson called wild gardening. This revolutionary approach encouraged the cultivation of hardy plants in natural-looking settings, creating gardens that appeared to be touched by nature rather than designed by humans. Primroses naturalize under the spreading branches of ancient apple trees, their pale yellow flowers creating drifts of color that seem to glow in the dappled shade. These primroses, Primula vulgaris, are the true English primrose, mentioned in Shakespeare's plays and countless poems. Their early spring bloom brings hope after long winter months. The apple trees themselves are magnificent specimens, heritage varieties with names that tell stories of English agricultural history. Court Pen du Plat dates back to Roman times, while Ashmead's kernel was discovered in a Gloucestershire garden in the early 1700s. Each variety was selected not just for flavor, but for specific harvesting times, storage qualities, and resistance to disease. Espalier fruit trees line the south-facing wall of the kitchen garden, their branches trained into flat, geometric patterns that maximize fruit production while creating living art. This ancient technique, perfected in French monastery gardens, requires years of careful pruning and training. but produces exceptional quality fruit in minimum space. The wall behind the espalier trees provides thermal mass, absorbing heat during the day and releasing it slowly at night. This microclimate allows tender fruits like apricots and figs to ripen in the English climate. The wall was built from handmade bricks, fired in local kilns using clay from nearby deposits. Each brick slightly different in color and texture, creating subtle variation in the overall surface. You pass through an opening in a yew hedge and find yourself in the White Garden, a sophisticated monochromatic design that demonstrates the Victorian mastery of color theory in garden design. Every flower in this section is white or cream, creating an effect that is both subtle and dramatically beautiful. White roses predominate, including the magnificent Rosa Madame Hardy, considered by many to be the most perfect white rose ever created. Its flowers are pure white with a distinctive green button center and the most exquisite fragrance. The rose was introduced by the French nurseryman Hardy in 1832 and remains unsurpassed for elegance and perfume. White peonies, Duchesse de Nemours, and Festiva Maxima provide massive blooms that seem to float like clouds above their dark green foliage. The petals are so pure and perfect they seem almost artificial. But their delicate fragrance and the way they catch and hold dewdrops reveals their natural origin. Tall white delphiniums, Galahad and White Knight, create vertical accents throughout the White Garden. Their spires of flowers seem to reach toward heaven, each individual bloom perfect in its symmetry. The varieties were carefully selected for their pure white color, without any hint of blue or pink that might disturb the monochromatic harmony. White campanulas, Canterbury bells, fill the middle layer of plantings. Their bell-shaped flowers nodding gently in the afternoon breeze. These charming plants were favorites in cottage gardens, but here they're used with sophisticated restraint. Their simple beauty enhanced by the careful color restriction. At ground level, white sweet alyssum creates a living carpet, its tiny flowers producing one of the sweetest fragrances in the garden. The scientific name, Lobularia maritima, reflects its Mediterranean origins, but it has adapted perfectly to English conditions, blooming continuously from late spring until the first frost. The effect of the White Garden is magical, especially in the late afternoon when the flowers seem to glow with inner light. This type of monochromatic planting requires exceptional skill and restraint, as the designer must create interest through texture, form, and subtle variations in tone rather than obvious color contrasts. You notice that even the foliage in the White Garden has been carefully selected. Silver-leaved plants like Artemisia and Landseers provide textural contrast while maintaining the pale color palette. The Landseers, Stachys byzantina, were introduced from Turkey, their velvety leaves feeling exactly like the ears of young lambs. A white-painted wooden bench sits at the center of the White Garden, Positioned to take advantage of the evening light that makes white flowers glow most brilliantly, the bench was made by the estate carpenter, using traditional mortise and tenon joinery that will last for decades. Its simple, elegant design doesn't compete with the sophisticated plantings around it. Continuing along the winding path, you enter an area devoted to herbs and medicinal plants. This section of the garden serves both practical and aesthetic purposes, providing ingredients for cooking and household remedies while creating beautiful displays of foliage and flower. The herb garden is laid out in the traditional knot garden pattern, with low boxwood hedges creating geometric compartments, each filled with a different herb. This design dates back to medieval monastery gardens, where monks grew the plants they needed for cooking, medicine, and religious ceremonies. Lavender borders many of the herb beds, its narrow, silver-green foliage providing perfect contrast to the various shades of green herbs. The lavender variety is Lavandula angustifolia Munstead, selected by the famous gardener Gertrude Jekyll for its compact growth habit and intense fragrance. The purple flower spikes attract countless bees and butterflies. Rosemary grows in several large clumps, its needle-like leaves releasing their piney fragrance when brushed against. This Mediterranean herb struggles somewhat in the English climate, but careful placement against a south-facing wall provides the warmth and drainage it requires. The variety is Miss Jessop's Upright, selected for its hardiness and excellent flavor. Sage plants display their soft, gray-green leaves in perfect rosettes. The culinary sage, Salvia officinalis, has been grown in English gardens since Roman times, valued not just for cooking, but for its supposed ability to promote longevity. The name salvia comes from the Latin salvare, meaning to be saved or to heal. Thyme carpets several of the herb beds, its tiny leaves creating dense, aromatic mats. There are several varieties, from the common English thyme to the lemon-scented variety that adds citrus notes to both cooking and potpourri. The flowers, though tiny, attract specialized bees that produce some of the finest honey. A magnificent bay tree, trained as a standard, provides vertical interest in the herb garden. Its dark green, glossy leaves are essential for proper cooking, while the tree's formal shape adds architectural structure to the informal plantings around it. Bay trees can live for centuries, and this specimen was likely planted when the garden was first created. Mint grows in specially contained beds, prevented from spreading by buried barriers. Victorian gardeners understood that mint's aggressive nature could quickly overwhelm more delicate herbs. The varieties include spearmint for cooking, peppermint for tea, and apple mint for fruit salads and punches. You notice that many of the herbs are in flower, creating a tapestry of subtle colors and attracting an amazing variety of beneficial insects. oregano flowers draw tiny beneficial wasps, while the blue spikes of rosemary flowers attract early bees. This biological activity represents the garden's role as a complete ecosystem, not just a collection of individual plants. The path leads through an opening in a hornbeam hedge, and suddenly you're walking through the cutting garden, where flowers are grown specifically for indoor arrangements. This working area of the garden demonstrates the Victorian integration of beauty and utility, where practical needs are met without sacrificing aesthetic pleasure. Rows of annuals provide steady supplies of cut flowers throughout the growing season. Cosmos, zinnias, marigolds, and nasturtiums grow in straight lines, making cultivation and harvesting easier. These flowers were started from seed in the greenhouse, transplanted as seedlings, and carefully tended to produce the longest, strongest stems possible. Sweet peas climb tall tripods made from hazel poles, their fragrant flowers in shades of pink, purple, and white, providing some of the most beloved cut flowers. The variety Painted Lady dates back to 1737, while newer introductions like Prima Donna represent the latest in breeding achievements. Each variety was selected for fragrance as well as color. Dahlias grow in dedicated beds, their tubers carefully lifted each autumn and stored in frost-free conditions through winter. These spectacular flowers, introduced from Mexico in the late 18th century, had become Victorian favorites, with hundreds of varieties available in every conceivable color and form. The dahlias range from tiny pompons no bigger than a golf ball to dinner plate varieties with blooms 8 inches across. Some are single, showing their centers to visiting bees, while others are so double they form perfect spheres of petals. The variety names reflect Victorian sensibilities: Bishop of Llandaff, Café au lait, Labyrinth. Gladiolus spikes rise like colorful swords from their dedicated bed. These South African natives had been enthusiastically adopted by Victorian gardeners, who appreciated their dramatic vertical form and wide range of colors. The corms were planted in succession, ensuring a continuous supply of flowers for cutting throughout late summer. A tool shed sits at one end of the cutting garden, its weathered wooden walls covered with climbing roses and clematis. Inside, carefully maintained tools hang in precise order, each one designed for specific tasks. The Victorian era saw tremendous innovation in garden tool design, with new implements being developed to make cultivation more efficient and effective. Traditional tools predominate: hand forks for weeding, dibbles for planting, and secateurs for pruning, all made by craftsmen who understood that good tools would last for generations if properly maintained. Many of these tools bear the marks of Sheffield manufacturers, renowned throughout the world for the quality of their steel. A potting bench runs along one wall of the shed, its surface worn smooth by years of use. Terracotta pots of various sizes are stacked neatly beneath, while seed packets and labels are organized in wooden boxes. This organization reflects the systematic approach that Victorian gardeners brought to their craft. The cutting garden also includes perennials that provide reliable cut flowers year after year. Delphiniums, peonies, and irises are grown in rows like crops, their beauty undiminished by their utilitarian arrangement. This integration of beauty and function exemplifies the Victorian approach to garden design. You continue walking, following the path as it curves toward the water feature. The sound of gently moving water grows stronger with each step, promising another beautiful vista ahead. The path is lined with hostas, their broad leaves creating cool, green tunnels that provide relief from the afternoon sun. These hostas are among the first to be cultivated in English gardens, introduced by plant hunters who brought them back from expeditions to Japan and China. Hosta sieboldii displays massive blue-green leaves, while Hosta ventricosa provides bright green foliage topped with spikes of purple flowers. Each variety adds to the tapestry of textures and colors. Ferns grow in the shadiest areas, their delicate fronds creating intricate patterns of light and shadow. The Victorian era saw a tremendous enthusiasm for ferns, known as pterodomania, which led to the creation of specialized ferneries and the publication of numerous books on fern cultivation. Royal ferns, Osmunda regalis, grow in the moistest areas, their golden autumn color providing seasonal interest long after most other plants have finished their display. These native British ferns can live for decades, slowly forming impressive clumps that anchor the woodland plantings. The path opens onto a vista of the ornamental lake, its surface reflecting the afternoon sky like a mirror. The lake was created by damming a natural stream, then carefully landscaping the edges to look completely natural. This type of natural water feature required tremendous skill and understanding of both engineering and aesthetics. A small island in the center of the lake provides nesting sites for water birds, while also serving as a focal point for the overall composition. The island was planted with native willows and sedges, creating habitat for wildlife while maintaining the naturalistic appearance. Stepping stones cross the narrowest part of the lake, each stone carefully positioned and leveled to provide safe passage while maintaining the natural appearance. The stones came from local quarries, their weathered surfaces providing perfect grip even when wet. Water lilies float on the surface, their waxy petals opening to reveal golden centers. These are hardy water lilies, varieties that can survive English winters while providing months of beautiful flowers. Nymphaea alba, the native white water lily, mingles with newer pink and yellow varieties introduced from other continents. The edges of the lake are planted with moisture-loving perennials. Iris pseudochorus, the yellow flag iris, grows in bold clumps, its sword-like leaves providing strong vertical accents. This native plant was valued not just for beauty, but for its practical uses. The leaves were used for thatching, while the rhizomes provided dye. Primula species naturalize in the moist soil beside the lake. Japanese primroses in shades of pink, purple, and white, creating drifts of color in late spring. These relatively new introductions required careful selection of varieties that could tolerate English weather conditions. As you stand beside the peaceful water, the afternoon light begins to take on the golden quality that announces evening's approach. The surface of the lake perfectly reflects the sky, doubling the beauty of every cloud that passes overhead. Time seems to slow down, measured now by the gentle lapping of water against the shore. A moorhen calls from somewhere among the reeds, its voice adding to the peaceful soundtrack of water, wind, and distant birdsong. This is the magic hour, when gardens achieve their most perfect beauty, and every element seems to glow with inner light. Your walk through this magnificent garden has revealed layer upon layer of beauty, each section carefully planned and expertly maintained, yet feeling completely natural and effortless. This is the hallmark of great garden design, where art conceals art and visitors experience only beauty and peace. The gentle sounds of the garden seem to call you toward rest. The soft lapping of water, the whisper of wind through leaves, the distant call of evening birds, all combine to create nature's own lullaby. Your eyelids grow heavy, and slowly, peacefully, you drift into a deep, restful sleep where dreams of perfect gardens bloom eternal. Chapter 4. Quiet Moments by the Fountain and Wooden Bench. You find yourself seated on a beautifully weathered wooden bench, positioned beside an elegant fountain that marks the heart of the garden's most contemplative space. The bench was crafted from English oak by a master carpenter whose family had worked with wood for 7 generations. Each piece of timber was carefully selected, seasoned for years, then joined using traditional techniques that require no nails or screws. The bench sits at the perfect angle to catch the late afternoon sun while remaining partially shaded by an ancient weeping willow. The willow's graceful branches, some touching the ground, create a natural bower that provides privacy and intimacy. This tree was planted nearly 50 years ago, when it was no bigger than a walking stick. Now, its massive trunk and cascading branches dominate this corner of the garden. Before you, the fountain rises in 3 elegant tiers, each level smaller than the one below, creating a perfect pyramid of flowing water. The fountain was carved from Portland stone, that creamy white limestone that has been the choice of English architects and sculptors for centuries. The stone came from the famous quarries on the Isle of Portland, where it was cut by craftsmen who learned their trade from masters dating back to Christopher Wren's era. Water flows continuously from the top tier, spilling over the carved rim to the level below, then cascading again to the bottom pool. The sound is perfectly calibrated, loud enough to mask the distant sounds of the world beyond the garden walls, yet soft enough to allow for quiet conversation or peaceful contemplation. This acoustic engineering represents sophisticated understanding of how water features contribute to garden atmosphere. The fountain's basin is surrounded by a border of York stone paving, each piece carefully fitted to create perfectly smooth joints. The pale gray stone provides ideal contrast to the dark water, while remaining cool underfoot, even on the warmest days. Between the stones, tiny sedums and sempervivums have been encouraged to grow, their succulent leaves creating living jewelry in the crevices. Around the fountain, a formal parterre garden displays the Victorian mastery of geometric design. Low boxwood hedges, trimmed to mathematical precision, create intricate patterns that can be fully appreciated from the bench. The boxwood is Buxus sempervirens sufferticosa, a dwarf variety that maintains its compact form with minimal pruning. These hedges were planted from tiny cuttings 15 years ago and represent hundreds of hours of patient cultivation. Within each compartment of the parterre, different plantings create seasonal displays of color and texture. Currently, pale pink begonias fill some sections, their waxy flowers providing months of continuous bloom. These are tuberous begonias, carefully selected varieties that thrive in the partial shade cast by surrounding hedges. Other compartments contain white, sweet alyssum, its tiny flowers creating carpets of pure white that seem to glow in the afternoon light. The alyssum was sown from seed in early spring and will continue blooming until the first hard frost. Its honey-sweet fragrance attracts countless beneficial insects, creating constant, gentle activity that adds life to the formal design. A few sections showcase the intricate foliage patterns of coleus, those tender perennials grown for their spectacular leaves rather than their modest flowers. The varieties display every shade of red, purple, yellow, and green, often with multiple colors in a single leaf. These plants require protection from frost, so they're lifted each autumn and overwintered in the greenhouse. The geometric precision of the parterre provides perfect contrast to the naturalistic plantings in other areas of the garden. This juxtaposition, formal versus informal, demonstrates the sophisticated design philosophy that characterizes the best Victorian gardens, where different styles complement rather than compete with each other. From your seat on the bench, you can observe the fountain's effect on the surrounding environment. Water drops create tiny rainbows in the afternoon sunlight, while the spray keeps nearby plants slightly cooler and more humid than they would otherwise be. This microclimate allows certain plants to thrive that might struggle in drier conditions. Ferns grow particularly well in the fountain's influence. Their delicate fronds seem to dance in the gentle air currents created by falling water. Lady ferns, Atherium filix femina, display their lacy foliage in perfect symmetry, while hart's tongue ferns provide bold, architectural contrast with their broad, glossy leaves. A small population of goldfish inhabits the fountain's basin, their bright orange forms providing flashes of color as they move through the dark water. These fish serve both aesthetic and practical purposes. Their beauty adds to the fountain's appeal, while their feeding habits help control mosquito larvae and other unwanted insects. The fish were carefully selected for their hardiness and color. Common goldfish varieties that can survive English winters outdoors while maintaining their bright coloration year-round. They've learned to recognize the regular feeding times and often gather near the surface when visitors approach, creating delightful interactions between garden and observer. Water plants grow in submerged containers within the fountain basin, providing oxygen for the fish while creating underwater gardens but surprising beauty. Hornwort and Vallisneria wave gracefully in the gentle currents, while water hyacinth floats on the surface, its purple flower spikes adding vertical accents to the water garden. The bench itself tells stories of the countless people who have found peace in this spot. The oak has weathered to a beautiful silver gray, and the surface shows the gentle wear patterns created by years of use. Initials carved by long-ago visitors, some barely visible now, remind you that this garden has been a source of joy and contemplation for generations. Cushions on the bench are covered in weather-resistant fabric, but their design maintains the garden's aesthetic standards. The pattern shows botanical illustrations of garden flowers, printed on heavy cotton that will withstand seasons of use. The cushions provide comfort while blending seamlessly into the overall design. A small side table, crafted from the same oak as the bench, sits within easy reach. Its surface is just the right size for a teacup, a book, or a small vase of garden flowers. The table's simple design doesn't compete with the more elaborate fountain, but provides practical convenience for visitors who wish to spend extended time in contemplation. Behind the bench, a magnificent specimen of Magnolia grandiflora spreads its glossy, evergreen branches. This southern magnolia, introduced from America in the previous century, has adapted remarkably well to English conditions. Its enormous white flowers, some nearly 8 inches across, appear throughout summer, filling the air with the most exquisite lemony fragrance. The magnolia's leaves are architectural wonders, each one perfectly oval with a glossy dark green surface and rusty brown underside. Even without flowers, the tree provides year-round beauty through its magnificent foliage. The contrast between upper and lower leaf surfaces creates constantly changing patterns as breezes move the branches. Beneath the magnolia, shade-loving plants create a carpet of varied textures and colors. Ajuga reptans, commonly called bugleweed, spreads its purple flower spikes among glossy green leaves. This ground cover provides reliable color while suppressing weeds and requiring minimal maintenance. Heuchera species, coral bells, add their delicate flower spikes to the understory planting. The flowers, usually in shades of pink or white, rise above mounds of perfectly shaped leaves that range from bright green to deep burgundy. These relatively new introductions from America were quickly adopted by English gardeners who appreciated their extended flowering season. Small bulbs naturalize throughout the shade garden, providing sequential blooms from earliest spring through late fall. Snowdrops push through frozen soil in February, followed by crocuses, daffodils, and finally, autumn crocuses that bloom when most other plants are preparing for winter. This succession ensures that the area never lacks interest. The peaceful atmosphere of this fountain garden makes it perfect for quiet activities, reading, sketching, meditation, or simply sitting and observing the subtle changes that occur throughout the day. Light shifts as the sun moves, shadows lengthen and change direction, and different flowers open and close according to their individual schedules. A sundial near the fountain provides a poetic way to mark time's passage. The bronze gnomon casts its shadow on a marble disc marked with Roman numerals. The inscription reads, "I count only the sunny hours," a reminder to focus on beauty and joy rather than life's difficulties. This sundial was made by craftsmen in London who specialized in scientific instruments. The accuracy of the sundial required careful calculation of the garden's exact latitude and longitude, as well as adjustment for the difference between solar time and standard time. Victorian gentlemen often possessed surprising knowledge of astronomy and mathematics, considering such scientific understanding part of a complete education. Small birds frequently visit the fountain to drink and bathe. House sparrows, robins, and wrens all use the shallow edges of the basin. Their presence adds movement and life to the scene, while helping to control garden pests. The constant supply of fresh water makes this fountain a focal point for wildlife throughout the garden. Butterflies also frequent the fountain area, drawn both by the water and by the nectar-rich plants that thrive in the humid microclimate. Painted ladies, red admirals, and peacock butterflies create living jewels as they move from flower to flower. Their presence indicates the health of the overall garden ecosystem. As the afternoon progresses, the light begins to take on that magical golden quality that photographers call the golden hour. Every surface touched by this light seems to glow from within. The fountain's spray creates tiny prisms. The stone surfaces warm to honey tones, and even the simplest flowers appear transformed. This changing light reveals details that might be missed during harsher midday illumination. The delicate veining in flower petals becomes visible. The subtle color variations in stone surfaces emerge, and the intricate patterns created by overlapping leaves cast fascinating shadows. A gentle breeze stirs the water's surface, creating concentric circles that expand outward from where drops land. These ripples catch and reflect light in constantly changing patterns, creating a natural light show that's both mesmerizing and deeply calming. The interaction between water, light, and air demonstrates the dynamic beauty of natural systems. The sound of the fountain mingles with other garden sounds to create a symphony of peace. Bees humming among nearby flowers, leaves rustling in the breeze, the distant call of a wood pigeon, and the gentle splash of water all combine into nature's own meditation music. This acoustic environment naturally lowers stress and encourages relaxation. You notice that your breathing has become slower and deeper, synchronized with the rhythm of falling water. This is one of the fountain's most valuable gifts, its ability to encourage the kind of relaxed awareness that restores both body and mind. The repetitive sound acts as a form of natural therapy, washing away the accumulated tensions of daily life. Time seems to move differently in this peaceful space. Minutes might be hours, or hours might be minutes. Without the usual markers of schedules and obligations, consciousness settles into a more natural rhythm, aligned with the gentle cycles of light and shadow, sound and silence that govern the garden's life. Time seems to move differently in this peaceful space. Minutes might be hours, or hours might be minutes. Without the usual markers of schedules and obligations, consciousness settles into a more natural rhythm, aligned with the gentle cycles of light and shadow, sound and silence that govern the garden's life. The fountain garden represents the ultimate achievement of Victorian landscape design, the creation of spaces that serve both aesthetic and therapeutic purposes. Every element, from the precise geometry of the parterre to the naturalistic plantings around the margins, has been carefully considered for its contribution to the overall sense of peace and beauty. This integration of art and nature, formality and informality, demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of how gardens can serve human needs at the deepest level. Not just providing beauty for the eyes, but creating environments that restore balance to overstimulated nervous systems and remind us of our connection to the natural world. As evening approaches, the fountain garden prepares for its transformation into a different kind of beauty. One where moonlight replaces sunlight, where night-blooming flowers open their petals, and where the sound of water takes on an even more mystical quality in the darkness. But for now, you rest peacefully on the comfortable bench, surrounded by beauty, soothed by the gentle sounds of water and wind, feeling your connection to the countless generations who have found peace in gardens like this one. The afternoon light grows softer, more golden, and everything seems to glow with inner peace. Your eyelids grow heavy as you listen to the fountain's gentle song. The peaceful sounds of the garden seem to call you toward rest. The warm afternoon light filters through your consciousness, like honey, and slowly, peacefully, you drift into a deep, restful sleep, where dreams of flowing water and golden light carry you through the hours until dawn. Chapter 5: A gentle sunset and closing the day in the garden. The day slowly transitions into evening, and you find yourself walking along the garden's highest terrace, where the best views of the surrounding countryside unfold like a painted panorama. The elevated position allows you to see not just the garden's intricate design, but also the rolling hills and ancient woodlands that provide the perfect backdrop for this cultivated paradise. The terrace was constructed using traditional dry stone wall techniques, each stone carefully selected and fitted without mortar, creating walls that will last for centuries while providing perfect drainage for the plants above. The stones came from local quarries, their honey-colored limestone reflecting the warm tones of the surrounding countryside. Ancient wisteria vines cascade over the terrace walls, their gnarled stems as thick as a man's waist, testament to decades of patient growth. In late spring, these vines would have been covered with pendulous clusters of purple flowers. But now in late summer, their lush green foliage provides cooling shade and creates living curtains that soften the hard edges of the stone construction. The wisteria varieties include both Wisteria sinensis from China and Wisteria floribunda from Japan, introduced by Victorian plant hunters who risked everything to bring back new species from distant lands. Each vine required years of careful training to achieve the current magnificent display, with branches guided along wire supports and pruned according to traditional methods passed down through generations of gardeners. Sunset-facing borders line the terrace, planted specifically to take advantage of the western light that now begins to glow with golden intensity. This careful attention to light direction demonstrates the sophisticated understanding Victorian garden designers brought to their craft. Recognizing that different plants and color combinations achieve their best effects at specific times of day. Orange and yellow flowers predominate in these sunset borders, their warm colors intensified by the golden hour light. Heleniums, commonly called sneezeweed, display their daisy-like flowers in shades ranging from pale yellow to deep bronze. These sturdy perennials were bred specifically for late-season color, providing brilliant displays when many other flowers have finished their performance. Rudbeckia, black-eyed Susans, create bold masses of golden yellow, their dark centers providing dramatic contrast that remains visible even from a distance. These American natives were enthusiastically adopted by English gardeners who appreciated their reliability and extended blooming season. The flowers continue to open until hard frost finally ends the display. Orange lilies, Lilium bulbiferum, rise on tall stems throughout the border, their upward-facing flowers seeming to capture and concentrate the evening light. These European natives were among the earliest lilies cultivated in English gardens, valued for their hardiness and spectacular color. Each bulb produces multiple stems, creating impressive clumps over time. Crocosmia, Montbretia, adds its own orange and red flowers to the warm color palette. The sword-like leaves provide architectural structure, while the arcing flower stems create graceful movement in the evening breeze. This South African native had recently been introduced to English gardens, where it quickly gained popularity for its unusual color and reliable performance. The warm-colored flowers seem to glow with inner fire as the setting sun illuminates them from behind. This backlighting effect was carefully planned, with plant heights and spacing calculated to create the most dramatic possible display. The result is a border that achieves its peak beauty precisely at sunset, when most people are naturally drawn outdoors to enjoy the cooling air. A pergola runs along one edge of the terrace, its oak posts and crossbeams weathered to the perfect silver gray. The structure was built using traditional joinery techniques, with mortise and tenon joints that grow stronger with age. English oak was chosen specifically for its durability and its ability to age beautifully without requiring constant maintenance. Climbing roses scramble up the pergola posts, their canes trained horizontally along the crossbeams to encourage maximum flower production. This horizontal training technique, learned from French gardeners, causes the plants to produce flowering shoots all along each cane rather than just at the tips. The result is a spectacular overhead canopy of flowers during peak season. Evening primroses, Onothera bianus, have been planted in large drifts near the pergola. Their pale yellow flowers open as the sun begins to set, releasing the most exquisite fragrance into the cooling air. These flowers evolved to attract night-flying moths, and their evening opening creates one of the garden's most magical daily performances. The opening of evening primrose flowers happens gradually, over the course of about an hour, as individual buds respond to decreasing light levels. Watching this natural clock provides a gentle way to mark time's passage, reminding observers of the subtle rhythms that govern all garden life. Night-scented stalks, Mathiola longipatula, fill gaps between larger plants, their modest daytime appearance transformed after dark when they release clouds of the sweetest fragrance. These plants demonstrate the Victorian understanding that gardens should appeal to all senses, not just sight, and that different times of day offer different sensory experiences. From the terrace, you can see the garden's overall design laid out below like a living map. The careful progression from formal areas near the house to naturalistic plantings at the boundaries creates a sense of journey and discovery. Each section flows naturally into the next, yet maintains its own distinct character and purpose. The kitchen garden, visible in the distance, shows the productive side of Victorian garden design. Neat rows of vegetables, espaliered fruit trees, and cutting flower beds demonstrate that beauty and utility can coexist harmoniously. Even working areas of the garden maintain high aesthetic standards, proving that functional spaces need not be ugly. Smoke rises gently from the chimney of the gardener's cottage, a picturesque building constructed from the same local stone as the main house. Mr. and Mrs. Hartwell, the head gardener and his wife, live there year-round, tending the garden through all seasons and maintaining the intricate systems that keep everything functioning smoothly. The cottage garden surrounding their home displays a more relaxed style than the formal gardens, with roses growing over the door, vegetables mixed with flowers, and herbs spilling onto the gravel paths. This represents the cottage garden tradition, where beauty and practicality merge in informal abundance. A church bell tolls in the distance, marking the evening hour from the village that nestles in the valley below. The sound drifts across the countryside, mixing with the garden's own sounds to create a symphony of peaceful rural life. This connection between garden and community reflects the Victorian ideal of harmony between cultivated and natural landscapes. As the sun sinks lower, the light takes on an increasingly golden quality, transforming ordinary plants into extraordinary displays. White flowers begin to glow like lanterns, while red and orange blooms seem to burn with inner fire. This magical transformation occurs daily, yet never loses its power to inspire wonder and peace. The temperature begins to drop as the sun's angle decreases, creating the perfect conditions for enjoying outdoor spaces. The stone terrace, which absorbed heat all day, now radiates gentle warmth, while cooling breezes carry the mingled fragrances of hundreds of different plants. Garden furniture positioned at strategic points along the terrace provides perfect vantage points for sunset viewing. Cast iron benches, painted in traditional dark green, offer permanent seating that weathers gracefully through all seasons. The designs feature botanical motifs, ferns, and flowers cast in iron by foundries that specialized in garden ornaments. Wooden chairs, crafted by local furniture makers, provide more comfortable seating for extended contemplation. The wood was seasoned for years before use, ensuring stability and longevity. Traditional joinery techniques create pieces that can be repaired and refinished indefinitely, making them true heirloom furniture. A tea trolley, wheeled up from the house for evening refreshments, holds everything needed for a perfect sunset tea. Fine china teacups, delicate pastries, and sandwiches made from ingredients grown in the garden itself. This tradition of outdoor evening tea represents the Victorian integration of formal entertaining with garden enjoyment. The evening light reveals textures and details that might be overlooked during brighter daylight hours. The intricate patterns of bark on ancient trees, the delicate veining in flower petals, the subtle color variations in stone surfaces, all become more visible and beautiful as shadows lengthen and light becomes more directional. Swallows begin their evening hunt, swooping and diving through the air in pursuit of flying insects. Their acrobatic displays add movement and excitement to the peaceful garden scene. These birds nested under the eaves of nearby buildings, and their presence indicates the healthy ecosystem that the garden supports. A barn owl calls from the ancient oak grove, its haunting voice adding mystery to the approaching dusk. Owls were welcomed in Victorian gardens for their role in controlling rodent populations, while their ethereal calls added to the romantic atmosphere that garden designers sought to create. Bats begin to appear, their erratic flight patterns creating dark silhouettes against the luminous sky. These beneficial creatures consume enormous numbers of flying insects, including mosquitoes and moths that might otherwise damage garden plants. Their presence indicates the balanced ecosystem that characterizes well-managed gardens. The first stars become visible in the deepening sky, starting with Venus, the evening star that has guided travelers and lovers for millennia. Victorian gardens often included astronomical elements, sundials, armillary spheres, and carefully oriented paths that aligned with celestial events. Garden lighting begins to take effect as daylight fades. Oil lamps and glass lanterns provide gentle illumination along main pathways, while candles and hurricane glasses create intimate pools of light around seating areas. This soft lighting extends the garden's usable hours while maintaining the peaceful atmosphere. The lighting was carefully planned to enhance rather than overwhelm the natural beauty. Fixtures were positioned to illuminate key features, focal point plants, water features, and important pathways while leaving large areas in gentle shadow. This selective illumination creates mystery and drama while maintaining safety. As darkness deepens, night-blooming flowers begin to open. 4 o'clocks, Mirabilis jalapa, unfurl their trumpet-shaped flowers in shades of pink, yellow, and white. Each flower blooms for just one night, creating constantly changing displays that reward regular evening visitors. Night-blooming cereus, though rare in English gardens, might be grown in conservatories and moved outdoors for special occasions. These spectacular cacti produce enormous white flowers that open only at night, releasing the most intense fragrance. Their brief blooming period creates unforgettable experiences for those fortunate enough to witness it. The evening air fills with fragrances that are absent during daylight hours. Night-scented flowers release their perfumes to attract nocturnal pollinators, creating an olfactory landscape as complex and beautiful as any visual display. This demonstrates nature's efficiency, where every element serves multiple purposes. Night sounds replace day sounds, as different creatures become active. The rustle of small mammals in undergrowth, the call of night birds, the gentle splash of fish rising in the ornamental lake, all contribute to the garden's after-dark symphony. These sounds create a sense of wildness within the cultivated landscape. A gentle breeze carries the scent of night-blooming jasmine from the conservatory, where tender plants spend the winter months protected from frost. The jasmine, Jasminum officinale, produces its most intense fragrance during warm summer evenings, when opened windows allow the scent to drift throughout the house. The ornamental lake reflects the deepening sky like a perfect mirror, doubling the beauty.